During the Biafran War, that lasted from 1967 to 70, there was an economic blockade. Nigeria closed all the borders to the Biafran uh, fledgling nation. And in particular, our access to sea was blockaded and closed. So the people started suffering from malnutrition, and one of the serious aspects was the lack of salt, because there was no way to get salt that was coming from the sea. And the consequence was what is called hyponatremia. It's a condition that occurs when the sodium in your blood falls below the normal range of 135 to 145. In severe cases, low sodium levels in the body can lead to muscle cramps, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and if it continues, it can lead to shock, coma, and death. And I remember when we were traveling to France in '93, and there were rumors that there would be a civil war again, not because of us, but because of uh, problems in Yoruba land that time. And my neighbors came and said, please, madam, before you travel, make sure that you store salt. And at that time, I was not aware of what had happened before. And I said, salt? Why? They said, oh, if there is no salt, it's going to be terrible. So make sure you keep salt at home. And I told them, no, it will be okay, it will be okay. And we traveled, and we never stored excess salt. There was no civil war, and we came back 1 year afterwards safely. But I always remembered that panic in people's eyes. And you know, God said that Christians should be the salt of the earth. What is salt doing in our lives? First of all, when we cook, we always add salt at a point. And the reason is that unsalted food is rather bland, tasteless. Salt enhances the flavor of what you cook. Salt, for me, is also linked with the fisheries in France. In Brittany, there is a tradition, very long tradition of fishermen living for Norway, Iceland, and Greenland in search of cod. So they traveled with their boats to those northern locations very early in the year, around February, March, and they only returned in October, September, October, after having fished a lot of cod. But you know, at that time there was no freezer, no fridges. So the way they kept the fish for consumption later on, for sale, was to embed them into tons of salt. So they put one layer of salt, one layer of fish, one layer of salt, one layer of fish, and they kept those to the brim. And so when they returned, then they showed that to the customers. And I remember my grandmother was cooking a lot of cod, and that cod had been preserved in salt. So she used to wash it and wash it and wash it before cooking it, but to my little palate, it seemed very, very salty still. Another very useful part of salt is to heal. Salt has a healing power. When I was young in Nigeria, after delivering one of my children, I started developing a boil in somewhere on my tummy. And it was very painful, and it was growing and growing like a spider. pushing pus everywhere, and when you press it, it's terribly painful, but the pus will be eventually coming out gradually. And I didn't know what to do about it. My husband was not used to going to the medical center. And so what he did was to say, no problem. He brought salt and spread salt on the boil. And it was a burning sensation. Very, very, very painful, as biting into the flesh. But I endured it, and day after day he put that salt into the wound, and the wound opened. The boil opened more and more, as if the salt was eating the flesh. And as it did, all the pus started coming out. And gradually, all the tubes that the boil had pierced into the flesh started retreating. And it started drying, and eventually the boil completely healed without any antibiotic. And that never left me. I always remember. And we know that we are using salt in many other places, like gargling, when you are having a problem with your gums or teeth, and many other uses of salt. So we are to be the salt of the earth, the ones that give flavor to life around us, the ones that bring healing everywhere we are, even though it can be painful for those that are on the receiving end. And it's also a way of preserving life. So my brother, my sister, be the salt of the earth, because the earth needs it. The world needs us.